I also fear how our actions will shape history. Will the House now have license to engage in freewheeling speculation about how a president's private wrongs bear upon his or her...
You are watching continuing live coverage of the House impeachment debate from CBS News.
And the last vote that I'll be called upon to cast in this House is the most troubling vote that I've made in the 24 years that I've been in this House. And it bothers me about the venom and the hatred and the camaraderie that is non-existent in this House anymore. And you know, hatred is hate is a terrible thing. Hate is a cancer that eats at us. It shows in our face, it shows in our walk, and it's something you can't treat with chemotherapy. You can't treat it with any drugs. You have to treat it with compassion and love. President Clinton is my friend. But the notion is that President Clinton has to go because the word is we've got to get this done. There's no doubt about it. The president has to go. And on the Judiciary Committee, I watched hours after hours of the Judiciary Committee. And the members said the president has shown no contrition. He shows no contrition. I don't know if you saw the moment when the President of the United States stepped out from the meeting with the ministers at the White House. It was not a call thing, it was an annual thing that they have. And he stood before the entire world, before the microphones and the television cameras that were carried all over the world. And he said, stood by himself and said, I have sinned. The most powerful man on the face of the earth stood bare before the world and said, I have sinned, and I ask forgiveness for anyone that I have caused pain to. And I ask forgiveness from Mrs. Lewinsky. I talked with him on 2 occasions after he made that statement. The man is contrite. And I don't judge that he has had a talk with his maker. But I've tried to talk with the news media and to express another opinion. Nobody wants to hear that. You turn the newscast, they start off either with the president saying, I never had sex with that woman. I never had sex with that woman, or hugging Ms. Lewinsky. I have yet to see one newscast anywhere in it or started with it that shows the President of the United States showing contrition and says, I have sinned and I ask God's forgiveness. I have sinned and I ask forgiveness for anybody that I have caused pain to. It may not be, could I have another 10 seconds? It may not be important to a lot of people, but for us that believe in the Judeo-Christian...
I yield to the gentleman an additional 10 seconds.
For those of us believe that in contrition and forgiveness, it is very important to us. And I think that this is wrong. There is no reason that has been explained to me or to this House why we cannot have a vote on censure. No reason. Vote to give us a vote to censure the president, not condemn him and do away with him. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the most senior member of the House, the distinguished gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Dingell.
The gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 3 minutes. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, what the President did was wrong, and what we are doing today is equally wrong. The process before us is unfair. The rights of the minority to offer necessary amendments or proper motions to recommit are being disregarded by the majority. It's an exercise of abuse of power by the majority on the rights of the minority. We are taking here and creating a rule of law which does not exist. The rule of law says that we should exercise our proper conscience and do what is right. It says we should impeach the president if he has done that which is wrong and which rises to the level of an impeachable offense. Clearly, this is not an impeachable offense, because impeachable offenses were defined to mean great and dangerous offenses by George Mason, not ordinary events. They were attempts to, and again in the words of one of the framers, attempts to subvert the Constitution. They constituted acts which were a danger to the office, a danger to the society, a danger to the nation, a danger to the people. Clearly, that is not so. The president's behavior, as I've said, is wrong, tawdry. The best thing could be said, it is not a great event, but it is a very small and small-minded set of events. This behavior should not initiate the impeachment processes. There are a lot of points that need to be made today. They have historical and constitutional importance. Impeachment is for matters involving behavior that constitutes a threat to the nation, the Constitution, and the office. The impeachment is a constitutional act of the House, referring to the Senate a finding of most serious misbehavior, as discussed above, which initiates a trial in the Senate, possibly resulting in removal of office from the person impeached. Impeachment is primarily a political process. It is not a judicial or a legislative act. Impeachment participates in the character of an indictment by the grand jury, but impeachment is different and imposes different responsibilities on members of the House. Impeachment does not involve criminal consequences. It simply initiates a process to decide whether the office holder shall continue in office or be removed. Impeachment is not a bar to subsequent criminal process, including indictment, trial, conviction, and punishment. While the president under the Constitution cannot be tried or indicted while in office, he may be subject and is subject to full process of the law upon leaving his office. Mr. Starr, if he finds the events require indictment or action in a criminal court, may clearly take that action. I urge my colleagues to permit us to vote on something which is important. That's censure. That's what the people want. That is what we should be doing today. I yield back the balance of my time.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Speaker, I yield myself 4 minutes.
Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 4 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in response,
And permit me to speak out of turn.
I yield to the
Unanimous
distinguished
consent.
chairman.
I thank the gentleman.
Ask the House to be in order.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that during further consideration of House Resolution 611, the previous question shall be considered as ordered on the resolution to final adoption without intervening motion except one, debate on the resolution for a period not to extend beyond 10 p.m. tonight, equally divided at the outset and controlled by the chairman and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Judiciary, and one further hour of debate on Saturday, December 19, 1998, equally divided and controlled by the chairman and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Judiciary. 2, after such first period of debate, a motion to adjourn, and 3, one motion to recommit, with or without instructions, which, if including instructions, shall be debatable for 10 minutes, equally divided, and controlled by the proponent and an opponent. During consideration of a resolution appointing and authorizing managers for the impeachment trial of William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, the previous question shall be considered as ordered on the resolution to final adoption without intervening motion or demand for a division of the question, except 10 minutes of debate on the resolution equally divided and controlled by the chairman and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Judiciary. When the House adjourns on Friday, December 18, 1998, It adjourned to meet at 9 a.m. on Saturday, December 19th. And I yield to my friend from Michigan.
Is there objection? Does the gentleman reserve the right to object?
Reserving the right to object.
The gentleman is recognized on his reservation.
And I shall not object. I want to indicate the cooperation and concurrence of this side with the proposal, and I want to thank Chairman Hyde for the cooperation in both our staffs working this out.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman,
and I withdraw my reservation.
I thank you, and I thank the chair. Now, thank you for permitting the interruption.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Without objection, it is so ordered. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker. Was all that taken out of my time?
It was not taken out of the gentleman's time, and you may proceed for 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We've heard a lot about the notion of censure.
The House will be in order. May we have order?
What's happened here is they've agreed to end today's debate at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Speaker.
Beg your pardon,
We're not
correction.
going to proceed
They've
until we have
agreed
order.
to end today's debate at 10 p.m. tonight, and then come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for what is now planned to be 1 hour of debate. So, if this holds, and there's no reason to believe it will not, there will not be an actual vote on impeachment until
Now,
tomorrow at the earliest. It happened rather quickly, and if you were following closely, you picked up on it, but if not, you may have missed it. Debate to 10 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Adjourn, come back tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.
I would demand a division of the question by article.
Let's pick it up.
The question will be divided.
Yes.
The gentleman from Wisconsin may proceed on his 4 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard a lot about censure, and I think it is important to
Clearing
follow
the details now to let the Speaker continue with his 4 minutes. But to review very quickly, debate to 10 o'clock Eastern Time tonight. Adjourn, come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for 1 hour of debate. That's what's planned now. And then a vote sometime tomorrow. That is the present plan, presumably subject to some change as we go along. We want to pick up the debate as it continues. At an appropriate moment, we'll come back and review. Pretty interesting goings-on these last couple of minutes.
To our former very distinguished... Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman may proceed.
This book quoted our former distinguished Speaker Thomas O'Neill from Massachusetts as follows. Quote, O'Neill went down the hall picking his way through the tourists to attend a meeting at which John Rhodes, the Republican leader of the House, gave it one last try for Nixon. Rhodes said he wanted the impeachment resolution recommitted with instructions that there should be a vote on censuring the president. Quote, I'm bitterly opposed to that, unquote, O'Neill said. Quote, but you wouldn't be opposed to us having a vote on censure, would you? Rhodes asked. Quote, yes, I would, O'Neill said. I think that my friends on the other side of the aisle should listen to their former speaker one last time, because on this one he's right. Now, Mr. Speaker, today we enter the final stage of the impeachment process. For those of us who serve on the Judiciary Committee, this has been a difficult and exhausting time. We have reviewed 18 boxes of evidence. We have heard the independent counsel present his case. Constitutional and legal scholars have provided opinions and historical perspective. The President's lawyers have made their case in his defense, and Chairman Hyde offered them 30 hours in which to do so. They didn't use it all. After examining and weighing all of this evidence and testimony, I believe that the President lied under oath, obstructed justice, and abused the power of his office by providing false statements to Congress in response to questions submitted by the Judiciary Committee. On Wednesday of last week, I asked the President's very able attorney, Charles Ruff, a very simple question. Did the President lie? Mr. Ruff could easily have said no. Instead, he split legal hairs, and that sealed my decision to support impeaching President Clinton. Mr. Speaker, most Americans are repelled by the President's actions. The toughest questions I've had to answer have come from parents who agonize over how to explain the President's behavior to their children. Every parent tries to teach their children the difference between right and wrong, to always tell the truth, and when they make mistakes, to take responsibility and face the consequences of their actions. President Clinton's actions every step of the way have been contrary to those values. But being a bad example is not grounds for impeachment. Undermining the rule of law is. Frustrating the court's ability to administer justice turns private misconduct into an attack upon the ability of one of the three branches of our government to impartially administer justice. This is a direct attack upon the rule of law in our country and a very public wrong that directly impacts the constitutional workings of our government. Mr. Speaker, impeachment is not a tool to paralyze democracy. Instead, it is the only constitutional mechanism available to protect democracy when its institutions are threatened by a president's actions. Today, based upon the evidence that the president lied, obstructed justice, and abused power in an effort to prevent the courts from administering justice under law, I rise in favor. I yield myself an additional minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
I rise in favor of impeaching William Jefferson Clinton. I take no joy in this decision, but I make no apologies either. America will emerge from this dark period of our history a stronger nation because we have demonstrated once again the resiliency of our democracy and the supremacy of our Constitution, and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to recognize the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Sheila Jackson Lee, a distinguished member of the Judiciary Committee, for 3 minutes.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the Speaker. Ask to revise and extend.
Without objection.
Speaker, I ask the House be in order.
House will be in order. House will be in order.
Mr. Speaker, let me first thank our American troops who are now fighting for our liberty. The Declaration of Independence is the promise of that liberty, and the Constitution is the fulfillment. And so today it was with great humility and somberness that I rise on the floor of this House in strong opposition against the articles of impeachment and express my support for censure. Impeachment, Mr. Speaker, is final. It is non-appealable. And the Constitution is the only arbiter of that process. Article 2, Section 4. I thank the Speaker.
I'm going to ask the members on the majority side to take seats. I wonder if the members on the majority side could show the courtesy to the Speaker Gentlewoman may proceed.
I thank the Speaker very much. The Constitution is the only arbiter of the process. Article 2, Section 4 is clear. Impeachment is for treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. This president did not commit impeachable offenses under our Constitution, and today, with such a vote, these chambers will become the incinerator of the Constitution. There is no fairness in this process. There is no justice, and there is no dignity. The charges in these articles of impeachment are meritless and not proven. Perjurious remarks have not been proven. Misleading, evasive statements are not perjurious. per the rule of law of the United States Supreme Court under Bronson. Abuse of power has not been proven. Monica Lewinsky said the president did not ask me to lie. And obstruction of justice has not been proven because the president answered the 81 questions. In light of the revelations of the last 24 hours, I believe not one of us in these chambers, not one member, would ask for the resignation of a member so charged. But as a woman, adultery is adultery. Nevertheless, the majority is recklessly attempting to make impeachable offenses purely private acts, in direct attack on the framers' intent that impeachment was for great and dangerous offenses against the Constitution. How do we heal this nation? How do we find uncommon courage? The majority must allow us to vote on a freestanding censure resolution constitutionally allowed that acknowledges that the president was morally wrong, misled the American people, and that the president, upon leaving office, will be subject to civil and criminal penalties. To do more lays the shredding of this Constitution at our feet. Today, with the vote for the articles of impeachment, we will use the ultimate weapon. We will use the ultimate death knell, the removal from office of this duly elected president for acts not against the president or the government. Our censure resolution does not violate the Constitution. It does not and is not a bill of attainder. It does not restrain the property or the liberty of the president. It is constitutionally sound. But today, this House will see sunset fall. And as we see it fall, I'd ask the gentleman for additional 15 seconds. I'd ask the gentleman for additional 15 seconds.
I yield an additional half minute to the gentlelady.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
I thank the gentleman for his kindness. Today, our vote leads into the darkness of a vile attack on the Constitution. We leave here today void and empty because our president will have been toppled against the will of the people of the United States. Mr. President, if you can hear me, do not resign. This is not a parliamentarian form of government. My colleagues, to you I say, heal our nation. Rise and vote for censure. Do the just and right thing. For it is written, Mr. Speaker, judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Vote for a censure resolution and abolish this unseemly act against our president and the Constitution. I yield back.
The chair would remind all members to address their comments to the chair. Let me make an announcement for both sides. The chair will recognize managers from the Committee on the Judiciary on either side of the aisle, endeavoring to maintain equality between the two sides in the consumption of time available. At a prescribed hour, we'll determine where we're at, and then we'll move on from there. Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Bliley.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, this is a sad day for this country. We shouldn't have to be here. If the president done what he should have done, we wouldn't be here, and admitted wrongdoing right from the start. We have heard said in this body, Mr. Speaker, that this is different from Watergate. But really, is it? In Watergate, the president lied to the American people. This president lied to the American people. In Watergate, the president did not commit perjury. This president, in my opinion, in the opinion of the overwhelming majority of the people of this country, did commit perjury. Either we are a nation of laws or we are a nation of men. If we are a nation of laws, then the highest and the lowest are subject to the same law. There is no preferential treatment, and we, in our Constitution, grants none. The president, in my opinion, obstructed justice. He attempted to cover up. To say this is just about sex is to say that Watergate was just about a third-rate burglary. Nothing is further from the truth. This president sought to cover up a crime. And if we allow this to stand without the ultimate punishment, which is afforded the Constitution, which charges us as the people's body to make, we have not done our duty, and history will so remember. I like to quote and paraphrase in closing the words of our colleague from South Carolina, Mr. Graham. He said early in the proceedings, 25 years ago, we had Watergate, and the American people today think that Congress reached the right decision. I hope that 25 years from this day, people will think that we made the right decision. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased now to recognize the gentlelady from Colorado, Mrs. DeGette, for 3 minutes.
Gentlewoman from Colorado is recognized for 3 minutes. Without objection.
Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution states that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason or bribery or other high crimes and misdemeanors. We have heard a lot today and in the past weeks about the rule of law, but that is not the standard for impeachment. We are all sworn to uphold the rule of law. And there is still a remedy in this situation for the President's action under the rule of law, criminal prosecution. The President lied to us, but this vote is neither about absolution or punishment. The only question we face is whether the President's actions, regardless of how wrong or potentially criminal, rise to the standard our constitutional forefathers set for us. We have been told by the majority of constitutional scholars that the President's actions do not fall in the meaning of high crimes or misdemeanors, but yet we persist. We have divided this House with partisan politics, sowing mistrust and exposing the darkness in our own hearts. It started with the first vote of the 105th Congress to censure the Speaker, and it has continued to this day to the vote to impeach the President. With all of the lost opportunities in between, it is no wonder we are losing the public's trust. After today, when the impeachment frenzy subsides, we will survey the damage to our...
As the debate continues for the next 9.5 hours, it is to end at 10 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Some of our CBS stations are going to return to regular programming now. For others, our CBS News coverage will continue.